History, they say, is written by the victors. But what about the conflicts lost to time, overshadowed by grander narratives? These are the forgotten wars, the skirmishes and standoffs that, while perhaps smaller in scale, cast long shadows on the present. They whisper to us across the decades, reminding us that borders are not merely lines on a map, but scars etched by struggle and compromise. In the annals of American history, numerous such conflicts have shaped the nation's destiny. One such forgotten struggle unfolded not on distant battlefields, but within the very fabric of North American trade relations. This was the trade war of 2025, a period of economic uncertainty and political brinkmanship that tested the very foundations of continental cooperation. The year 2025 dawned with an air of unease across North America. The global economy, still reeling from the aftershocks of the COVID-19 pandemic and geopolitical turmoil, found itself on the precipice of a new crisis. At the heart of this storm stood the United States, led by the recently re-elected Donald Trump, a figure no stranger to disrupting the established world order. Trump's return to power in 2024 after a tumultuous 4 years out of office signaled a resurgence of his signature America First agenda. This policy, characterized by protectionist trade measures and a hardline stance on immigration, had already sent shockwaves through the global economy during his first term. Now, with renewed vigor, Trump set his sights on renegotiating the terms of trade with America's closest neighbors, Canada and Mexico. The America First doctrine, deeply ingrained in Trump's political ideology, viewed international trade not as a mutually beneficial endeavor, but as a zero-sum game in which one nation's gain came at the expense of another. Central to this worldview was the belief that the United States, for too long, had been taken advantage of by its trading partners, particularly those in the North American Free Trade Agreement. Trump argued that NAFTA, established in 1994 to eliminate trade barriers between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, had led to job losses in the American manufacturing sector and a decline in the country's industrial base. He pledged to renegotiate the agreement, which had been superseded by the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement in 2020, to secure more favorable terms for American workers and businesses. Section 4. A continent on edge: trade disputes and tensions. Trump's demands for concessions from Canada and Mexico, particularly in the automotive and dairy sectors, were met with resistance from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada and President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. Both leaders, while acknowledging the need for modernization of the USMCA, argued that Trump's proposals were unreasonable and would harm their respective economies. The ensuing months were marked by a series of tit-for-tat tariffs and counter-tariffs, as each nation sought leverage in the negotiations. The automotive industry, a cornerstone of the North American economy, found itself caught in the crossfire, with tariffs on vehicles and parts disrupting supply chains and driving up prices for consumers. The agricultural sector, too, felt the pain, as tariffs on dairy products, lumber, and other goods strained relationships between farmers and ranchers across the continent. Section 5. Echoes of Conflict, the Korean DMZ, 1966 to 1969. While the trade war of 2025 unfolded on the economic battleground, another forgotten conflict serves as a stark reminder of the enduring power struggles that shape borders. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, a 2.5-mile-wide buffer zone separating North and South Korea, bears witness to a lesser-known chapter of the Cold War, the Korean DMZ conflict of 1966 to 1969. In the shadow of the Vietnam War, a conflict that dominated global headlines, North Korea, under the leadership of Kim Il-sung, embarked on a campaign of aggression along the DMZ. Motivated by a desire to reunite the Korean peninsula under communist rule and exploit the United States' preoccupation with Vietnam, Kim Il-sung ordered a series of infiltrations, ambushes, and attacks on South Korean and U.S. forces stationed along the border. Section 6. A World Asleep. The Forgotten Front of the Cold War. The Korean DMZ conflict, though largely overshadowed by the larger events of the Vietnam War, was a period of intense fighting and bloodshed. North Korean soldiers, highly trained and motivated, launched daring raids across the DMZ, targeting South Korean military outposts and civilian communities. One of the most audacious attacks occurred in January 1968, when a 31-man North Korean commando team infiltrated Seoul, the South Korean capital, with the aim of assassinating President Park Chung-hee. The raid, known as the Blue House Raid after the presidential residence, was ultimately unsuccessful but sent shockwaves through South Korea and the United States. Section 7. The enduring legacy, borders, shaped by conflict. The forgotten wars, whether fought on economic battlefields or along heavily fortified borders, serve as potent reminders of the fragility of peace and the enduring consequences of conflict. They challenge us to look beyond the dominant narratives of history and acknowledge the often overlooked struggles that have shaped the world we live in today. The trade war of 2025, though ultimately resolved through diplomatic channels, left an indelible mark on North American relations. It exposed the vulnerabilities of interconnected economies and the potential for political rhetoric to disrupt decades of cooperation. The Korean DMZ conflict, a stark reminder of the human cost of ideological struggle, continues to cast a long shadow over the Korean peninsula, a region